Is Christopher Nolan really overrated? Spoiler, yes, he really is. Bach, Mozart, Goethe, Nietzsche, they're all, Dostoevsky, they're all rolling around in their graves and saying, wait, what? Who the hell's this guy? What the hell's this crap? Compared to Michael Bay, he's a huge genius, but that's not a compliment. So I'm going to review all of his movies. But first, like and subscribe if you agree that he's overrated as hell. Nolan's first movie is called Following, which is about a writer who follows people around for inspiration. Appropriate, because a famous wise man once said that an artist is a person who leaves their house and just walks in any direction and just goes down random streets. Whereas Nolan actually follows people looking for creativity, I guess. One of the main characters is named Cobb. And the movie is basically a mind screw where you don't know who the good guy is, who the bad guy is. Everybody's tricking each other. And the movie has plenty of Nolan's trademark and unnecessary time skippings. A lot of, oh, you thought this was the bad guy? Oh, no, it's this guy's the bad guy. Oh, wait, no, he's not the bad guy. This guy's the bad guy. Which is almost his trademark at this point. His next movie is Memento, which was clever. Very clever. What do we call it? A novelty of a movie? I would say it's one of his best movies because he actually uses the time, his hobby of moving time backwards. He actually does it to the fullest extent, and it works. Memento was a really good Twilight Zone episode, just a really good movie. Memento also proves that Christopher Nolan is at his best when he's not trying to be deep, right? Like, he's no Kubrick. He's not some kind of artist. He's just good at, like, creating mysteries and stuff, just like lower level art, right? Like, he just makes puzzles, and that's fun, and that's fine. But don't try to say there's anything profound going on. Insomnia is a remake of a 1997 film, Norwegian film. I never watched it, and that's why I can tell you it sucks. Also, Nolan didn't write it, so I don't really include this in his repertoire when I make fun of him as an artist, or as a wannabe artist. Now, when Batman Begins came out, I was a huge fan of Christian Bale, and I was a fan of Christopher Nolan because of Memento. And Nolan does his typical thing where he shifts time around, and it just confuses the thing, and it's unnecessary, as it usually is. I found the movie to be extremely boring, and the hyper-realism to take away everything that is good about Batman. The Batmobile looks atrocious. And, they're coming, he's trying to be realistic. And I'm like, well, then, one of my friends joked, well, then why don't we have him drive a smart car? Well, why have bat ears if we're being hyper-realistic? There's nothing realistic about Batman. That whole idea of realism in Batman was the worst idea. Batman Begins sucked. And Nolan does his little thing where, like, oh, you thought the villain was this person, but it's actually this person, right? You thought it was the Scarecrow, but it's actually Ra's al Ghul. The Prestige is Christopher Nolan's best film, in my opinion. And it's probably because magic, the theme of the movie is magic, and Christopher Nolan only likes doing puzzle movies. So it actually works for the thematic that he does puzzle movies, for him to be doing a magic thing, which is all about sort of being deceptive. And it isn't filled with time jumps like he likes to do all the time to screw with your mind and make you think that he's smart. Surprise, surprise, it wasn't written by Christopher Nolan, so no wonder it's so good. The Dark Knight, thankfully, doesn't have all the time jumps that Christopher Nolan thinks makes him look smart. But it does have all this stupidity of, like, how complex, what a genius the Joker is, even though all of his plans are ridiculous and don't stand a chance, and they rely heavily on luck. After I saw it, I said, It was just as bad as Batman Begins, except for the Joker. The Joker was the only good thing in it. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who said the exact same thing. The only good thing about it was the Joker. And my friend said, I'm still trying to figure out who the Chinese guy was. Now, Inception is where I first figured out that Christopher Nolan was kind of a hack. It still worked. Nice, complex little puzzle. And I'd say the whole dream within a dream within a dream thing is really cool and very well done. Not a bad movie. In fact, in many ways, a very good movie. But Nolan had to throw in like a love story, and he had to throw in chase scenes to bring in the the cows, the herd, the cattle, the common man to watch his movie. And I just wish Nolan would just stick to doing your puzzle movies and stop trying to satisfy all audiences. Because I can feel him thinking like, oh, well, if we have a love story, that'll bring in more female audiences. And if we have a chase scene, that'll bring in more Fast and the Furious audiences. It's like, okay, yeah, but buddy, if you're trying to make great art, if this is a passion project, then you're degrading it by doing that. And again, there's no depth to this movie. It's just a puzzle, okay? There's no deeper like subject matter, there's no moral to the story, and I always say that the most fundamental thing about a movie or a story is the moral. The moral is what keeps it all together. And there really isn't a moral in this movie. The Dark Knight Rises is probably my favorite Nolan movie because it actually does have a moral of sorts. And it's linear for a change. It's just a straightforward story that you can follow. It's not afraid to just be a story. Oh, but the title, The Dark Knight Rises, it was the worst title. And if Nolan had read Nightfall, which I had read, he might have thought, well, why not call it, instead of The Dark Knight Rises, call it Night Rise. And it has one of the worst pieces of dialogue I've ever heard, where Batman comes up to Bane at the end, and Bane goes, so you came back to save your city? And Batman goes, no, I came back to stop you. And any amateur writer anybody can think of a million retorts to you came back to save your city. For example, I'm just off the top of my head, Batman could have said, you're not coming back though. And of course, Nolan could not resist having us think the villain is one person and then have it be somebody else. So just like in Batman Begins, where we thought the villain was the Scarecrow and it turns out to be Ra's al Ghul. Just like in The Dark Knight, where the Joker was the main villain, but then later Harvey Dent is the main villain. Now in this one, okay, we thought Bane was the main villain, but hey, switcheroo. It's actually Talia al Ghul. Right? Nolan can't help but try to be clever. And dude, if you can actually be clever, then go for it. But this is not clever. Interstellar is the movie where I was like, okay, now I'm never going to trust this guy again. Because after all of the work that he puts into this movie and that we put into watching it, he says, the answer is love. And my improvement would be consciousness. No, not love. Consciousness. That could be the missing ingredient in the universe. Not love, though. That's not part of an equation. I'm sure that the visuals are accurate to what space really looks like, so it would be worth watching in terms of visually seeing what a black hole would actually look like. But story-wise, it's just... Nolan, you cannot tell drama. You're not good at drama. You're only good at puzzles. Like the whole story between the father and the daughter, it makes you cringe. It's just embarrassing. It's bad. And it doesn't even matter, right? This is why movies like 2001 are considered to be masterpieces, because they discard all that crap. I'm surprised Nolan didn't put a car chase into this movie. Yeah, the missing equation to Einstein's formula was love. I'm actually surprised that more fans are not amazed, like, are annoyed by that. Like, that's worse than Batman and Superman bonding over their mothers both being named Martha. Like, oh, the secret ingredient to my recipe is love. That's how I make such good cookies. Dunkirk, okay, in defense of Dunkirk, I hate war movies. I find them really boring. Not because I don't enjoy gore. I watch lots of horror movies, but I just find war movies very, very boring. But I do understand there was a lot of, I think there was either a lot of time shifting or there was just like 3 different plots playing out in different orders. Just like, so he's trying to create a puzzle so that you think he's smart. I never watched it because after Interstellar, never again. But I just assume it was another, like, Fast and the Furious movie that he makes, where, like, it appeals to people who want to think they're smart. Christopher Nolan is what a stupid audience thinks a smart director is. After Inception, after Interstellar, I kind of like, you burnt me too many times. I know what you're about. I know what you're going to do. You're going to do a little puzzle, and you're going to pat yourself on the head for how clever you were for doing a little puzzle that none of us could understand, that you probably don't understand either. Okay, Tenet. Guess what? I didn't watch it. I assumed that it was going to be another puzzle movie, where and apparently it is, and it's even worse, where it's like it just doesn't even make sense to itself. I got to give Nolan a little credit for having characters named like the protagonist, because he is innovative in some ways. He's just not. He's not the genius that he wants to be. He's just not good enough. Right, okay, so this movie is the reverse Bullet movie. Bullets can move back in time. And it's not there's no thorough explanation. It makes no sense whatsoever. And let me know in your comments if there's a chase scene and there's a love story, because I would assume there is. Oppenheimer is more of the pseudo-intellectual puzzle crap that I'm used to from Nolan. I watched it twice. I watched it once drunk, because I'm proud to be an alcoholic, but also because I wanted to see, is there anything really here? And I came to realize that, okay, the black and white scenes are the scenes with Robert Downey Jr. from his perspective. Okay, fine, fair enough. But as is always the case with Nolan, he has no real moral to his story. He's just kind of like he's doing a biography, and maybe he's best at just doing biographies like Scorsese. Scorsese at his best does biographies, where he's not actually making a comment, he's just observing. Because there's really nothing here. Okay, great, the story. I mean, I could have read the biography of Oppenheimer on Wikipedia, and I would get just as much out of this. I don't really need to know, and did you really examine the moral dilemma of this, Nolan? I don't think you did. Because I didn't really feel like it was examined enough. I don't even think Nolan himself could say what this movie's about. Is it about a guy who was exploited and everything was blamed on him for creating the nuclear bomb? Because that's certainly not treated as the main subject matter. And again, it's not a bad movie, it's just not a good movie. Nobody will ever watch it again, right? Generations to come, nobody's going to watch Oppenheimer. Just as nobody will ever watch Interstellar. Just as nobody will ever watch... Well, they might watch Inception, because that was kind of cool. But they might not, though. Everybody will watch The Dark Knight. But his movies that are rewatchable are more for, entertainment rather than inspirational reasons. If you support gays, click like. If you respect blacks, comment. If you think women are people too, click the notification bell. And if you care about sick children, subscribe.